everyone, and thank you all for being part of this. I apologize in advance for running around my eyes. It's because I'm speaking to several cameras, and I would like to make a clear statement that all the videos I'm showing today happened last year before the rules of social distancing. The first question I would like to present is the question of the merit, the zchut, the privilege of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. What makes one great rabbi, a great Jew that lived in the 2nd century, almost 2,000 years ago, such a privilege to see about 500,000 or 600,000 people go to his graveside and dance? If you go further with this question, you can ask a general question of a yahrtzeit. We are familiar with the law of the anniversary of death, and we know that anniversary of death is time that people get together at the cemetery and they feel sad and sorrow and connected to the one who's no longer among the living. Here, not only you see a gathering of so many people, but is the largest festival of klezmer, meaning clarinet, saxophone, and other great performance. This is the highest possible, not only in Israel, but in the entire Jewish world, the highest attendance and highest level of klezmer festival. So here we have numerous questions. Question 1, why him? 2, isn't that the opposite to the code of behavior, the decorum of a cemetery? And in addition to that, what makes a person, as much as we can describe his greatness, reach that level of attention, level of connectedness? I would like to digress for a second and take you to the area of China, which called Tibet, or place that China took over. And yes, it sounds weird, it sounds far away, but here is the place I'd like you to think about, and it is a place called Shangri-La. Did you ever heard that name of a city? In English, you can click and spell on your Google search XiangggeLila. So in short, it's a monastery in Tibet, in a place that China in a way took over. And in the largest monastery in that small city, they carry only Hebrew Jewish calendar. And on top of that, on the day of Lag BaOmer, which always match the Lag BaOmer in Israel and the Jewish world, it marks in their monastery that this is a time of highest energy, the highest moment of transcendental gathering of the heavenly forces with earthly forces. So again, the question is, what makes these days so special and why? In Judaism, we all know that a lot of stories is based on legends. And legends, as you know, we love to hear those stories as little children. We feel very connected to them over the years of our maturity. But when we reach our adulthood and we start making a serious researches, sometimes the discoveries are different than the way we inculturated in a very early stage. So I assume that some of the stories you heard in the preschool, elementary school, are different than the way you convey to your children, grandchildren during Pesach Seder and more. And since we know that Lag BaOmer is not biblical and There's no place in the Mishnah that they tell us in a Talmud too that Lag BaOmer is a time that you should gather your self and your family, and you go around a grave and lit a bonfire and dance. Obviously, the sources for that goes much later. So the point of departure it should be, to answer this serious question, is understanding the mindset of the Jewish world. And to understand the mindset, we have to support those ideas from legends. And as we said earlier, legend is something that we are taking almost as a divine literature. And as a mature adult, as we said, we leave it for you discretionary to make decision if this is something you would like to be connected and adopt or not. And why I'm saying that? It's because we are going to enter to a world of mysticism, a world of Kabbalah, and a world of a secret doctrine of Judaism. And by getting to that domain, we have to make all those disclaimers in advance that it's based on the legends and Talmudic stories, Midrashic stories, and rabbinic literature. So what exactly the Talmud tells us? The Talmud relate to us a story of Rabbi Akiva. What do we know about Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva was a man that up to the age of 40, again I paraphrase text in the Talmud, up to the age of 40 he does not read, writes alphabet. He has the ability to speak, but that's it. He entered to the Cheder or Talmud Torah, early age of learning, at the age of 40, start learning alphabet. And it's a long description in the Talmud. You're welcome to visit those sources and read how hard but happened to Rabbi Akiva, and with the very strong support of his wife Rachel, he went to that house of study. He studied for many years, 12 years, 24 years. And again, Talmudic language, it's hard to define if the numbers are the real exact number. But the key point is he learned for many years and he established such a largest attendance of students that 24,000 of them followed him. Rabbi Akiva's life is a fascinating story that maybe we discuss in another time, especially his end of life, which we every Yom Kippur, every day of atonement, doing Musaf, the additional service, we read the story of the 10 martyrs, heartbreaking story of torture and terrible death by the Romans. But be as it may, Rabbi Akiva, one of the great trials and tribulations he went through is, as much as building so many students and such a large followers, a plague, a virus took place. And again, we are about 2nd century, at the era of Roman persecution. Virus, to us, it may sound familiar in 2020. At that time, obviously, the response to virus and the capability to do something were very different. So imagine the Jewish world, the Jewish community that followed Rabbi Akiva at that time in the, which called today Israel, period of, again, depends how you count the period. Some said over the 32 first days between Pesach till the 33rd day of the Omer, the Lag is 33. Others said it was a larger period of time, but be as it may, the idea is that about 24,000 students die from that pandemic, from that terrible virus. And the question is, with the details of the virus or the details of the death, it's not so much important for our discussion. Is the idea that if you go by that notion that 24,000 students die, so it's about 700 students a day. Now imagine a man like Rabbi Akiva, the greatest scholar and leader of the Jewish world, that left his stamp of learning by not only his era, but to this very day, the Jewish law and the halakha and the Talmud is based on that continuation between, as the rabbi said, between Moses and Rabbi Akiva and onward. And all of a sudden, disappointment is such a level that 700 students need to be buried over each and every day. Now, here is the key point for all this fascinating story in the Talmud, that after a period of 32 days, or as I said, you can go by legend, it's a different time, I'm just going by the traditional common legend, he basically left with no students. So imagine a man start learning Hebrew at the age of 40, then about 25, 30 years later, he is such a world scholar that he has 24,000 students. And then all of a sudden, a period of either a month or you can argue and say years, but anyway, in a short period of time, he lost all of his students. So what makes Rabbi Akiva? He said, I cannot allow the sacred Torah and the teaching of Judaism to just disappear. And he went, the Talmud described, to the southern part of Israel. He got together 5 students and he taught them the Torah and Judaism, and they became the leading scholars and leading Talmidei Chachamim, nowadays we call it rabbis, to their time throughout generation. One of his students, or you can argue and say the best of the 5, was a rabbi, sounds Sephardi, right? Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Again, at that time, Israel, hard to say Sephardi and Ashkenazi in that sense, but orientation over Sephardi. And Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the Talmud described how it was an informer and the Romans were after him, and he was hiding himself in a cave together with his son Elazar, and he was there for a period of 13 years. And it's a long story, long legend. He came out and he saw people walking, and he says, how come people walk and not serve God? And all of his survivors, 13 years in the cave is another beautiful story, how he found in a well and carob tree. But the beauty of all of that is, again, Talmudic language of numbers, it's hard to convey in the exactness, but the key is about 26 years later, he came out with the great revelation of Zohar, or Talmudic interpretation of the text in a logic way, was kind of something to hold in its own respect. Now I'm revealing a concealed light, heavenly knowledge of something new that no one or familiar, at least not the public, up to this point. To this very day, the scholars argue over that. Yes, there are some scholars that hold that the text or relation of the text is the 13th century Rabbi Moshe de Leon. There's a lot of discussion over who is the author or who are the authors of the Zohar and who's responsible for the distribution of the Kabbalah, the secret document, to the masses. Overall, in general, we can argue for days and weeks and months and years, but there is a point of origination that somehow attributes to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, his son, Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, and other great rabbis that lived at that era. Obviously, there are those who say that several books precedes to that, like the book of creation, the book of Hanoch, the book of Bahir, enlightenment, Heichalot, Zutar, Rabati. It's a lot of books that some people hold that were earlier, but be as it may, it's clear that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai in some way was the key point of change. And why it's so important? It's because from that point onward, people understand the Pardes. Pardes is the Hebrew abbreviation for 4 different directions when we study the text. Pei is the simple, is Pshat. Remez is the hint, Reish. Dalet is a Midrash, is Drush, is rabbinic stories and legends. And Samech is the secret, is the sword, is the esoteric understanding. And the beauty of that teaching is telling you when you have a problem with the text, just for our understanding. If they said, the Almighty said to Moses, I'm going to send before you an angel to guide you to the land of Israel. And the question is, what do you mean by saying you're talking a literal angel, or you talk a metaphysical or something else? And here you have the literature of the Zohar and others that come up with a lot of new revelation and new discovery of understanding the text. Now, because of that, and because of the great gift to the world of the secret, many people felt kind of relief throughout generation over the painful question, namely, why Jews are suffering. This is a question that comes up all the time. You read stories of the Jewish people persecuted, executed, the Jewish people suffer worldwide and more. And by going through that avenue of saying that there is a way broader understanding and it's the secret of the text and understanding all these nuances of the history of the Jews in connection to their influence to the world, to the future plan for the Jewish people, it can convey much easily and better understanding for people. The knowledge of the sacredness of the Torah in the Pnimiyuta, in the inner understanding of the Torah, that was another huge gift that attribute from Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai to others. Now back to our original question. So is that enough to create such a 600,000 people to have a bonfire? And why bonfire? Simply speaking, obviously there are many, I'm just glancing over several reasons. It's because up to this very moment, the Jewish world suffered from the virus. The virus which took away 24,000 of Rabbi Akiva, and terrible disease or terrible war, or whatever you said, involved at that time. But the key is disappearance of so many Jews, particularly people who have the potential to teach Judaism to a future generation. That took place on the era that many observant Jews call the Sphira, the era that they mourn. And some people mourn in such a level that they do not shave, not cut hair, do not involve with the celebrations, wedding and things like that. There are those who go further with that, which is total restrictions during those first 32 days, or from the Rosh Chodesh until Lag BaOmer. And then from that point of Rabbi Akiva going to a new direction, not getting down, depressed, hopeless, heretic, or whatever other people react to the crisis, but instead going down to the south, get together 5 students and re-establish and restart and reboot, reinvigorate the Jewish future toward these 5 disciples that bring the fire, bring the light to the future of the Jewish people, and the new fire of understanding the new direction of Torah. That's the original source for that minhag, for that Jewish tradition of lighting a bonfire and dancing and celebrating. So in short, what we understand, it's number one attribute to the end of the pandemic or the virus of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, and the beginning of revelation of new world. So almost saying that it's attribute to, in a way, Rabbi Akiva, in a sense, taught his teaching to his best disciple, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai. The new world of secret doctrine come out later on, 3 decades later. But furthermore, is the idea that the fire of understanding, the fire of Torah, the fire of hope, the light, the concealment light, the heavenly light that was concealed from the public, now able to come out and people can learn it. Obviously, it's not for everyone, and there is much more than just revealing the text. But physically speaking, we should bear in our minds that since about 2nd century, the era of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai, up to approximately establishment of the state of Israel and more, I'll say approximately 70 some years, it was a lonely, empty site. The new world of state of Israel and new gathering of the Jews, especially in the past several decades, that creates a new atmosphere of need and gathering. Is that really his yahrtzeit? Is that really the death, the anniversary of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's death? It's another question. Not everyone goes for that. There are some say yes, some say no. So what we get so far, the reason for the dancing and the reason for the celebration, it's more kind of spiritual gift that the Jewish world received toward Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai, and his son, which is the Zohar or the Kabbalah or the secret understanding of Jewish suffering and Jewish life. In other words, the great enigma, the great question of understanding the Jewish suffering, or what happened to the Jewish people and why you see all this sadness in the Jewish world, it in a way assuaged that sadness, that pain, for knowing that there is a better future, there is something there involved that more than our level. Obviously, the Kabbalah itself and the literature itself expand in many different ways. Some took it wrongly. We are familiar with stories like the false Messiah of Shabtai Tzvi, the false Messiah of Frank, and others that present those literature as charlatans, as themselves, that we are the Messiah and we are the people who have that message for ourselves. And unfortunately, there are some Jews that follow it, and that's the key reason why the rabbis to this very day are kind of hesitant from sharing the knowledge of Kabbalah with others. The fear of people misconstruing or people twisted or take it in the wrong way. Someone may say it's almost like teaching a child that hardly know algebra, mathematical analysis, and a high level of physics, while he or she doesn't have the basic foundation of algebra. So in that sense, yes, there is a secret part and the esoteric part of the Torah, but you better, the rabbis tells us, you better learn the foundation before you go further. there is much more than just a question of anniversary of death of Rabbi Shimon Ben Yochai and the idea of the distribution of Kabbalah. If you look overall, again, just for a glancing over the early Jewish mysticism, there are those who say that it goes back much earlier to several books. There are those who are responsible for spreading it much further. The big names are the 13th century in Provence and Girona, in Spain, in France, in other countries, like Rabbi Moshe de Leon, like Rabbi Chazdai ben Krashkash, like many others, Nachmanides, who follow Rashi and came out with all kind of secret understanding of texts, and relatively many others who live at that era, from Rabbi Azriel and others. At that time, again, because of the problem that it's created, several rabbis suffer from some type of excommunication and more, because average person may misconstrue that. Good example is Rabbi Abulafia of 11th century and others who basically try to bring combinations and numbers and amulets, and according to other rabbis who live at that time, they feel that the Jewish world are really not prepared for that. That happened again around 16th century in the northern Israel, in the city of Sefat. The gathering of the Ari, Rabbi Yitzchak Ashkenazi from Egypt, and his disciples bring about the distribution of more a almost practical Kabbalah. That open-ended question can stay for long, and maybe we should leave it for another discussion to know what exactly transpired and how and why the 16th century Kabbalah again suffer from a lot of objections. The simple answer is, as we said earlier, the fear of people taking that in the wrong way and start living their lives just according to mysticism and not focusing on the essence. But back to Lag BaOmer, I'll go to an example, two examples maybe, to the extreme over the celebration of Lag BaOmer. And again, Lag, Lamed is 30, Gimel is 3, Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of counting the Omer, which is the original biblical commandment of counting the Omer, the harvests, from Pesach until Shavuot. During biblical time, it was the tabernacle, and people brought this wheat offering from the harvests. Later on, during the temple in Jerusalem, people brought the offering, and it was the way they count the days, 7 days, 7 weeks, between the festival of Pesach to festival of Shavuot. So here, I'm holding a book that originally was written in 16th century. It's called Kidvei Rabbeinu Ha'ari, the writing of the Ari of the 16th century, Rabbi Ashkenazi. His students were the one responsible for distribution of many literatures. One of them was a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Chaim Vital. And I tried to read quickly some point here and translate it, and it's kind of frightening to even read it, but he said as follows: עניין מנהג שנהגו ישראל ללכת ביום ל"ג בעומר על קברי רשב"י ורבי אליעזר בנו, the idea of the minhag, the tradition the Jewish people having to go on Lag BaOmer to a gravesite of the 2nd century Rabbi Shimon and his son Rabbi Eliezer, אשר קבורים בעיר מירון כנודע, that they are buried in the place known city of מירון, ואוכלים ושותים ושמחים שם, and they eat and drink and marry and dance there. So he described how the Ari went there, וישב שם 3 ימים ראשונים, that he was there 3 days in advance. And then he described how people brought their sons for, which we call halake, or halake is in Yiddish, or upsharing. Is the idea that there are observant Jews that have the child, the boy, have his hair grow up to the age of 3, and then by the age of 3 they go to the graveside of Rabbi Shimon and they cut the hair, and then they leave the side lock, which called the payas. So he described that minhag, that tradition at that time. And then he said something very disturbing. He said, "Gam le'id harav Rabbi Avraham HaLevi." So it's also, he brings a rabbi, a student of the Arizal, that he was among the people who attend there. כי בשנה הנזכרת הלך גם הוא לשם. That year he was also among those who attend the Lag BaOmer celebration on the graveside of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. והיה נוהג בכל יום בברכת תשכון נחם השם אלוקינו את אבלי ציון. We know on Tisha B'Av, at the time of the highest level of mourning, there is a special prayer called Nachem, prayer for comfort, that we recite during Tisha B'Av. So that rabbi by the name of Avraham HaLevi, the students of the Ari, not only on Tisha B'Av, but he has that tradition to read that paragraph during the silent Amidah, even all year around. So he did it. B'yoto sham amar nachem. So when he attended the Lag BaOmer, he recited that paragraph. ואחר שגמר העמידה, when he completed the Amida prayer, אמר לו מוריזל, so the Arizal said to him, כי ראה בהקיץ את רשב"י עליו השלום עומד על קברו, that he saw the 2nd century Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai standing, like he saw the image. He is like almost like imagination or dream or whatever you call it, like a vision. And he saw the deceased Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai from the 2nd century standing at the top of his grave. עומד על קברו ואמר לו, אמור אל האיש הזה אברהם הלוי, כי למה אומר נחם ביום שמחתנו? So go and say to this Rabbi Avraham HaLevi, why at the day of our rejoicement he is saying such a prayer of comfort, of condolences that we are saying only on Tisha B'Av? והנה לכן הוא יהיה בנחמה בקרוב. So therefore, if that's the case, he will accept condolences soon. ולא יצא חודש ימים, and it was only less than a month later, עד שמת לו בן אחד, that one of his sons of Rabbi HaLevi passed away, וקיבל עליו תנחומים. And he really had people come and give him condolences. So he brought this writing, and he said that he wants to emphasize the importance of celebration of Lag BaOmer. But again, you read this and you see the emphasis and the importance of the celebration of Lag BaOmer and how far it goes in the rabbinic writing. But you ask yourself a question, is that, as you know, you have 2 rabbis and you have 5 opinions. Does that mean that every rabbi agree with that? So the truth of the matter, it's not. I give you some example. There is a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Sopher. Rabbi Sopher was not only a great Hungarian scholar in Hungary, but he wrote a responsa called Khatam Sofer. That's a rabbinic responsa, and several hundred years ago, and he wrote Yored Asiman Reish Lamed Gimel, a very strong, I'm just paraphrase his word, very strong language. He used this terminology that it's kind of hard to read. He said that, like every Jew, I love to live in Israel and I love to be there, but if it's just one area that I'm happy I'm not there, he said, it's because I can't stand the fact that people go and dance around the grave on Lag BaOmer. I think that it's kind of wrong. Later on, in another responsa, he tried to bring the idea of Lag BaOmer, that it's an important day of celebration, not in a sense of dancing and singing around the grave, but it's because the day that manna came from heaven, he said that it's because it's the yahrtzeit of the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Weisblum, and more. But as you see, there are oppositions. As you see, opposition if it was really the anniversary, the yahrtzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai. There is a question that one of the great Kabbalists, whose name is Chida, Rabbi Chaim David Azulai, the great Sephardic rabbi, in one of his books, Mari'it Ha'ain, he brought the idea of Gilgulim, which we didn't touch much, but Gilgulim by Kabbalistic literature, meaning a belief of transmigration of souls. And in a very short is the idea, you see it in several rabbinic sources, that it's a belief that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai was a transmigration of Moses' soul. Again, hard for us to comprehend the concept, or the Rabbi Ashkenazi, the Arizal, is the transmigration of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai. But the key idea is not the anniversary of the death of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai. It's either because the end of the virus, the end of the plague, or it's because, as we said, the ingathering of Rabbi Akiva's students and having them come up with rejuvenation of Judaism, and the great winning of the Jewish people, that what Judaism is all about, that we as Jews throughout thousands of years not get defeated or bent over temporarily a world crisis, but we are able to overcome those crises and be able to withstand and go further and build again, even after tremendous amount of loss. In a very, very short, Kabbalah literature not only speaks about these lives, they talk about past life and future lives as well. And in that sense, we see the continuation after the 16th century, the building of the Hasidut, the Hasidim, the Baal Shem Tov, the great rabbis in Europe, and their establishment, or the controversy between the Litvaks and the Hasidim, which is again subject for another talk. The Lithuanian, the Litvaks Jews, they said anniversary of death is a time of sorrow. The Hasidic Jews said if the person was a highest level of righteousness, it's almost a time of celebration, that there is a continuation of the souls, that there is a future for that teaching and more. By early Kabbalah literature, they speaks about the baby that learning the entire Torah before she is born, and then the Talmud describe and the Kabbalah expand on that you see the little something that the baby upon the birth, and that's basically kind of angel or higher entity that caused them to forget, and the entire goal of life, according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Kabbalah literature and others, is basically revivification or recalling, regression therapy. They coming back to think that the person already learned before he or she were even born. So as you see, the whole idea of Lag BaOmer and celebrations go way beyond the simple meaning of bonfire and singing songs and Baruch. Now, several comments for those who came later. One, the simple question of social distancing. All those videos and all those pictures applies to up to 2019. This year, if I'm not mistaken, the Israelis allow about 50, 80 or something like that people with the social distancing to even go there. So that's important for people to know. Also, it's important to know that not every single one, not every rabbi, not everyone is happy with that concept. Some rabbis feel that it's better to study from his books, to learn his teachings and more. Yes, not everyone is happy with the concept of focusing on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yohai and not focusing on the background. So that's another comment you hear from people. Some may say that it should be attributed to Rabbi Akiva, who was buried in Tiberias, in Tiberia. Some even go further to say that Rachel, the wife of Rabbi Akiva, that let him study for 24 years and was the main energy and support for all of his success, she is the cause of the celebrations. And again, it's left unknown. Some say that her burial site is in Tiberias. You see in Tiberias there is a sign made in the past not too many years that's the gravesite of Rachel, the daughter of Kalba Savua. As we said, when we traveled to Israel, Gita just sent me a text that we saw her grave in Tiberias when we went to Israel last time. It's still controversy if this is her grave or not. The Muslims hold that it's a sheikh, but be as it may, the idea is Rachel, who came from very affluent family, gave away all of her wealth to support Rabbi Akiva, and they lived in poverty for many years before he reached his greatness. And as I said, that there are those who feel that we should recognize or give the attributes to the sources of the sources. But be as it may, the idea of celebrations and the idea of being happy that we have a good future, the idea that we are now kind of prepare ourselves for the Shavuot, for the festival of giving the Torah, and the revelation of the secret document of the Torah is the key cause of the celebrations. The fascinating fact is, unlike any other gathering of the Jewish people, this time is, at least up to this year, was the highest attendance. But I can wrap it up by saying that the consensus among almost all the rabbis, it's not so much with the anniversary of death, and it's not so much with the names, but with the concept. And the concept is a huge change in overcoming over suffering, the Jewish suffering of a specific death of 24,000 students or whatever they are, and being undefeated as a nation, and be able to come out and rebooting ourselves and be connected to the highest being, and be able to see the other side of the picture and to see the positive goodness of the world. That's the cause of celebration. Obviously the Zohar and many other Kabbalistic literature are available to the world.